Well, hello, Bri. I am so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on our shows. I can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be spending my Friday with you.
Right? I love that. So, first off, I am really, really excited to dig into everything because I have been following you on social, checked out your website. I don't know how we actually connected, to be honest with you, but I have followed you and I'm like, I have got to just tap into her brain and share everything she knows. But before we do that, can you just tell me a little bit about you and your business?
Yep. So I am kind of where success and business strategy meets the subconscious. So much of what I do is a combination of what are the rules that you've written in your subconscious at a very young age about what's possible for you. And then how do we rewrite those and shift those to be in alignment with your goals? And then what's the strategy, the pathway for you to actually get there, right? So
Yeah.
I blend the inner world and the outer world because you can't have one without the other. You could have the best subconscious in the world, but if you don't have a plan or a map, you can't get there. And you can have the best plan in the world, but if your subconscious is saying this isn't possible for you, who do you think you are? That can never happen. That's impossible. You can't get there. So my business is basically the intersection of both those things to use all of what's available to all of us to create the success we desire in the world.
I think a lot of people overlook that component of their business. Like when they say they want a roadmap, usually that roadmap is okay, I need to come up with like a business plan, a strategy, like I need to do all these things. And they never really think about that whole subconscious and that other component. So I love that you bring that to the table. And
Well, and I'll just illustrate it quickly for people because I had a
yeah.
client that I worked with 2 years ago. And when she came to me, I didn't know what was going on in her subconscious. And she would come to the call every day, every week and say, I just need a strategy. I need a strategy. I need to make more money in my business. I need a strategy. And I would give her all these strategies. And they were good strategies. I gave her one that was like, this would take you less than 5 minutes a day and increase your revenue by 20%. Like, that's a good
Who
strategy,
doesn't want that?
right?
Right.
She never acted on it. And so the space between the strategy and her action was her subconscious getting in the way. And what I learned was her mom had taught her from a young age that if you want to be successful, therefore you are selfish.
Oh.
So anytime she went to then go create more success in her business, first of all, she always skirted responsibility. So she'd always be like, oh, it wasn't me, it was my team. You had the vision, girl. Like, you're the one that brought this forth. You're the one leading the vision. Yes, your team
Yes.
has helped, but also you can't just not take responsibility for it. And then her brain was telling her it's not safe to be successful because my mom will disown me, or I will therefore be a selfish person, or right, which are not conscious thoughts that we have.
Right.
Consciously we think like, oh, I can't do that strategy, or I can't take that action, or I'm too busy, or that'll never work for me. And so that's kind of the gap that I fill for people. If you find yourself knowing what actions you need to take or knowing where to go, but you can't bring yourself to actually do it, you're hitting an invisible wall, and it's called your subconscious.
That's good to know because I don't think one of my questions was how do you know if you've got that block? So you just answered that for me right there. So if you're feeling that, right? Feeling that stuck, then it's your subconscious. There's something going on and you need to figure it out. You need to break through that. So I love that. My degree is in psychology, by the way, just side note. So I can geek out on this conversation all
Same.
day long.
I
Okay.
minored in
Like, I
psychology.
love it. I love the way the brain works.
Yep.
I love understanding human behavior. So you're
Same.
speaking my language right now. Now, I actually wanted to talk to you about community and the importance of community. So before we get into that part, can you tell me, do you remember a time in your own personal journey where you were trying to do it by yourself and Did it go as planned? I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask you.
Where do I start? So I'm 42, and so I literally hypnotize myself. When I find myself bumping up against an invisible wall, I do it on myself because I know it works.
Interesting.
And the most recent one that I did was I always feel alone. Like I always feel unsupported. I always feel like I'm trying to climb this unclimbable mountain and that no one's alongside of me, right? Which is a lie. I'm also deeply spiritual. So I believe in a higher power. I believe in my higher self. I believe in all of these things. And yet I believe in them, but I'm still telling myself that I'm alone all the time. And so have felt from a very young age like I have to do it alone, or that I'm different than other people, or that like I have I've tried to do everything in my life alone basically, and it just makes things 10,000 times harder
Mhm.
because and I firmly actually also believe that you can't especially build a business alone. You can't succeed alone. You know, I've been going through this kind of like I've been calling it my entrepreneurial midlife crisis, and if I didn't have my husband or my partner, right? Like I couldn't be traversing this pathway by myself. I'm
Yeah.
having all these conversations with friends and colleagues about what I'm going through that are illuminating so much within me that I wouldn't have expanded into if not for them, right? And not only my journey, I see it in my clients too, but I think that going it alone just it's such a in America especially, we're very go it alone kind of like, well, you know, if I just work hard enough, I can overcome these things and whatever. And I just started to realize at one point, like, okay, can I? Yes, I can. I've done it before, but why would I choose to why would I choose the harder path?
Right. Well, you know what? I'll share part of why I did that in the past is I had this belief that I had to have all the answers. And if
Mm,
I reached out to somebody for help or guidance, then I didn't have all the answers. And it took something away from my credibility, right? So I've lost credibility because I can't do it by myself. Today, I know that's an absolute ridiculous mindset and thing to tell yourself, but that it was really real to me before. So there was a fear about reaching out to people. Now, how do you overcome something like that? I don't know how I overcame it, but couldn't be the only person dealing with that.
no. And I will say, especially for like solopreneurs and stuff, this is so common. It's like, well, I've gotten here by myself. You know, like why I shouldn't have to hire someone. I shouldn't have to bring on, I can do it all alone. Right. So
Yeah.
I think the first step we have to take, and this is like the process of hypnosis, is I always liken it to a garden. So if you had a garden that was full of weeds and you wanted it full of flowers, what's the first thing you do? Well,
Pull the
you
weeds or
pull
plant
the
the
weeds.
flowers. I don't have a
Yeah,
green thumb, so
you pull the weeds.
okay.
You pull the weeds. So what we have to do is we have to go into like your mind and start asking, okay, what put this belief in there, or where did this belief come from, right? Like what's the root of it? Because also if you had weeds, you wouldn't just go into your garden and like cut the tops off and leave the roots. You would dig up the roots of the weeds. And so we have to get in there and dig up and say, what caused me to believe this in the first place? Did someone say something to me? Did I see it modeled? Was like, what was that my body created safety and my subconscious created safety around doing it alone? Then once we've dug up all the roots, then we have to till the soil and start to shift the perspective and say, okay, well, if that's how the pre 8-year-old me wrote the rule book, what's actually true? Because the perspective of a pre 8-year-old is radically different than my current perspective, right? Like I live a very different life. So we have to till the soil. We have to shift that perspective of like, what is actually the truth for me? And then we have to plant the new plants. If you want tulips, gladiolas, coneflowers, like whatever that is, right? Like you get to then plant what do you want in its place. Now, the important part, obviously, when you plant a garden, especially with bulbs, you plant them once, they just magically pop up every year. With your subconscious, our brain learns through repetition. So then we also have to remind our brain and get it to learn this new language by repeating whatever that new thing is, and kind of anchoring the safety into our subconscious around that new narrative or that new belief.
Interesting. So as you're talking, and it's a little bit off topic, but I wear hearing aids, and I got hearing aids a few years ago. And I remember when I first put them in, first off, it was devastating because I'm like, I'm too young for this, right? This is crazy. But when I put them in, everything was super loud. So I lived in Florida. I was walking the beach, walking on the sand, no seashells, but it sounded like every step I was crunching a million seashells. Running the kitchen faucet, the water sounded so loud, it almost hurt. And so I went to the audiologist and I was like, this isn't working. I don't want to wear them. I can't hear anything right. I'm hearing everything I never heard before. And what she said was, continue wearing them because your brain will know the important stuff and fade out the non-important stuff. And it absolutely did. And as you're talking about this, I see that correlation, how our brain is so powerful. It's going to weed out the stuff that's not important that we've told ourselves and focus on that important stuff that we're relearning right now.
Yep.
So interesting. So we need community. I love it. I love when I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a correlation there. Like, it's our brain working again for our benefit. Like, this is incredible.
It's amazing how we've had it our whole lives. We've carried it around with us our whole lives, but like people have radically misunderstood the purpose and the power of our brain, and it like all this science. And I love that it's science-based too, right?
Yes.
Like, this isn't just woo or positive thinking or whatever. It's literal science. They can prove now how our neural pathways are built and all these things. Like, I think it's such a cool era in like the evolution of humankind that we get to understand how to use our brain for us and how to use our brain for our success as well, rather than spending our whole lives fighting against it.
Yes. Amen. Preach, girl. That's so true. So if somebody is listening right now, right, as we start to talk about all this, and there is a woman listening, and right now she is doing everything herself. And she might think, you know what, I'm actually doing it okay. What might she be missing? Like, how is that isolation really impacting her growth that she may not see in the moment?
Yeah, this is one of the hardest parts, because what it's like right now, you and I are both steeped in oxygen and we can't see it, right? We don't think every breath we're taking consciously about the fact that we're like breathing in and out oxygen. And that's what happens with a lot of these thought patterns too. So the first step is you have to get aware of like what other options are available to you. So even listening to this podcast right now, you're going to get aware of what other options are available to you. So I'll share one of my quick stories around this was like, I've worked really, 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 really hard for my entire life. I have overworked and underlived for basically my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And when I started kind of deciding that I was ready to call in my significant other, I had to get really honest with like, how is another person going to fit into my life when my entire life is revolving around me working a lot? And I had to sit down and get really honest with myself around like, is there space for me to even have a husband? If that's what I'm really desiring. And if not, then I get the opportunity to sit down and say, okay, what has to change? I have to decouple myself from my addiction to productivity. Because if I don't, I'm never going to have the space that I need to call in that partner that I've been looking for. I had been single for 12 years. And so when we get aware. And when we listen to things like this, we start to shift and say, oh, actually, there's more available to me. And just because I've done it a certain way in the past doesn't mean I have to continue doing it that way. It's one of the biggest things that drives me nuts about where I live is that everyone here is like, well, little lady, this is how we do things around here. And I'm like, but what if it's
Oh
not the
gosh.
best way? What if there are better ways of doing things and you're cutting yourself off from the better way of doing things literally only because it's how you've done it in the past?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know about you. I do not want to repeat my past every single day for the rest of my life. I'm not interested in that. So at some point you have to stop and say, I'm putting my foot down. I'm drawing a line in the sand, and I refuse to just keep wash, rinse, repeating unconsciously all these things, which, yeah, have they worked? They've worked. Could they have worked better? Maybe. You're only going to know if you open yourself up to the possibilities that there's more available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. My biggest frustration is when I hear somebody say, well, we've always done it that way. It's like, okay, fine.
Why? Why?
Let's try something different. Let's fail. Let's fall on our face. Let's pick ourselves up and try something different again. It's like, I don't understand that thinking at all, that we've always done it this way.
Well, and also I currently live in Oklahoma. It's the worst state in the nation for education, for women, for domestic violence, for we literally rank the worst for a slew of things. And I just want to shake people and be like, yeah, but doing it this way has gotten you to the bottom of the list.
Yeah, so why do you want to continue that?
Are you really committed to being the worst? Like, what if, and actually I have an episode on my podcast that's coming out where I talk about the fact that you're like, we sacrifice greatness for good simply because we know the good. But we're cutting ourselves off from experiencing the great only because it's in the unknown.
Yeah.
What if there was magic and miracles waiting for you in the unknown that you just haven't opened yourself up to yet? And all it would take would be like, I wonder if I could do something differently and get a little support in my life.
Yeah. I mean, we find comfort in the good, right? And we miss the magic. We miss the great and those next levels. And it's actually kind of sad. I mean, we're kind of making a joke about it, right? That you're okay being the worst and ranking at the bottom. Like, that's your goal. But how many of us, honestly, as individuals, as entrepreneurs, have done that and not realized that there's so much more potential beyond us, right? Like,
I've done it.
We've got so much beyond us, but we think that this good is comfortable and this is just, we're going to hang here for a while because we've made it, right? And in reality, there's so much more.
I'm going to tell you, I just got back from 2 weeks in Arkansas. I took myself to house sit for strangers in Arkansas.
Were strangers. I saw you were house sitting, but you didn't know that?
TrustedHouseSitters.com. I was like, I need to remove myself from my comfort zone because I'm starting to feel like it's limiting me. And if I don't change something, I am going to be I'm not unhappy right now, but I'm also not happy. And if I stay this way, it's going to get worse.
Right.
So I radically disrupted. I know you saw my Instagram. I went and babysat for 16 chickens, y'all. I am terrified of birds. I did not tell the homeowners this. They did not know this. I'm terrified of birds. And I was like, all right, if this is what it takes for me to get out of my own way and to open up to seeing that there's something greater available to me, so be it. And I will tell you, it worked. Now, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But I had some of the best conversations with individuals that expanded my mind bigger than I ever thought was available to me. I had meditation sessions. I went deep, and you said I'm in the midst of a pivot right now. I'm redefining everything about who I am, what's available to me, what I want my business to look like. And it came through a combination of me being willing to take myself out of my comfort zone and also having calls and conversations and connections with people who are expanders in my life to help me see that there's more available to me.
Wow. Wow, what an experience. It was more than just watching chickens. I mean, that's incredible that you had that opportunity. And first off, you opened yourself up to that opportunity, not really knowing what the outcome was going to end up being, but you just said, let me get uncomfortable. Let me get out of my comfort zone. And magical things are starting to happen for you because of that. So kudos to you for taking that bold step. I think that's really courageous, more courageous than I think a lot of people realize. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm going to Prescott to babysit a cat in a month. And I have a few more house sitting gigs lined up because I'm like, all right, if this worked.
Yeah.
Let's fast track it a little bit.
Yes, I may have to keep you on our house sitting list when we go out of town.
Call me.
Right?
Bless my husband. He has been, speaking of like calling supportive people into your life, I have to say Jordan has been so incredibly supportive. It is not every husband where you can say, I think I need to leave home for 3 weeks. That can be like, have fun. Let me know how it goes, and I'll hold down the fort here. And
that is awesome. That really is. I mean, that's so important too, to have that support system, community, right? I mean, it's a community of two, but it's a community, and you've got somebody supporting you through your journey, which is it's awesome to have that. So when we realize that we need community, how do we find the right community? Because I'm going to be really honest with you, and we kind of talked offline a little bit. It's easy to find people. It's easy to find other entrepreneurs, but it's hard to find that right community. So how do you do that?
So I will say it definitely. So one, stepping into a community that's already been built can be helpful. That's how I ended up where I live right now, is that I stepped into a community here and it involved me moving here. And simply stepping into a community is not creating the connections and the relationships you need, right? So you can step into a community of people who are seemingly like-minded, and you still have to put yourself out there, right? Like you still have to be proactive, connect with people, go out for coffees and lunches and meetups and like all those things, right? And it still does require some sifting, because just because you're in the same community as someone doesn't mean you have similar values or any of that stuff, right?
Right.
I think one of the things that I've heard from people who have joined the community here about why they've left is they're like, oh, well, like I didn't really meet anyone. And I would always say, well, what did you do to like facilitate that, right? Like you have to still be very proactive. So stepping into an already established community at least gives somewhat of a baseline that then you have to dig more to see if there is truly relationships there. The next thing I'll say is introductions. You and I hopped on here immediately and you're like, I just moved to a new place. And I was like, I know someone amazing who lives there. Let me connect you. Right? So asking people, and oftentimes you do have to ask. You didn't have to ask, but oftentimes most people have to ask, hey, do you happen to know anyone who blank? Could you connect me with them? Right? And then also just getting out into the world. I think especially as online entrepreneurs, we forget about that part of like, just start showing up at your favorite coffee shop. You see someone reading a book that you've read, like strike up a conversation, get to know people. Like you never know what will happen. One of my close friends and I met at a yoga class in Sedona, Arizona, right? Like you just never know what you have in common with the people around you, and you won't know if you don't say something as well.
Yeah. It's funny because as you were talking, I'm thinking, I've been part of a lot of different communities, whether it's entrepreneur groups or chamber of commerces or what have you, and people will join and they show up, and then I've heard the same thing. They leave and they're like, "Well, I didn't get anything out of it." And it's like, "But you didn't put anything into it." You know,
That.
sometimes we hope, and I've been there. I'll be really transparent. I'm always super transparent with everything. I moved in 2020 from Montana to Florida. Now in 2025, and I worked really hard in Florida to get rooted there. And I was in a great community. I'm grateful for that community. I ended up getting really involved and was on the board for some amazing organizations. And I made a very small, but a presence there, right? In the short amount of time I'm there. Now I've moved and I'm like, I don't know if I have the energy to do that again. Right? Because I went so hard. I'm like, this is it. We're going to get rid of there. And it's like, okay, things happen, life changes. Now I did go to a networking group and I met some amazing women, and I would like to meet some of them a little bit more and kind of build more of a friendship and get to know them. But there's also this hope that you just show up and it just magically happens. I'll be honest. I'm just like, can it just
I mean, it can sometimes, right? Like you had no idea hopping on this call today. I'd be
it
like,
did.
oh my
Yes,
God,
it did.
I need to introduce you to someone who's in the town that you now live in, right? Like you didn't
Yes.
know that that would happen. So there is magic. I always like coupling magic with intentionality because
Yeah.
I don't know. I get hope. I get it.
Yeah.
Like this painting that's behind me is from A New Hope from Star Wars, right? Like
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
And in 2013, I got this tattoo right here on my inner arm. It says La Regina. The initial word I was going to have tattooed on me was La Speranza, which means hope in Italian. And I woke up the morning of the tattoo appointment and I was like, is hope really the energy that I want to like imprint on my body?
Mm.
Like, do I want to wake up and just hope? Because hope to me, again, while it can have a place, feels disempowered. It
Mm.
feels like I'm sitting around without the ability to like do anything about it and just hoping that things come into my life. And
Yeah.
so instead, obviously, got La Regina, which means the queen, which to me is more of like an embodied, empowered thing where I'm like, I have the ability to do something about my situation. Does it require me to overwork and underlive? In the past, it has.
Yeah.
But what if now I could show up empowered and connect with the right people and, find different opportunities in like a really beautiful way that doesn't require me to burn out like I did in the past
Right.
and gives me all the benefits of the things that I'm looking for anyways.
I love that. I have Believe on my wrist. And when I got it years ago, right? And it was just like, I got it because I accomplished something I never thought I could accomplish. And I went through a divorce and just a really bad time. And I'm like, yeah, you really are capable of anything. If you believe it, it will happen. And so that's what I got as my reminder during times that I am like questioning myself. Like, no, shift that mindset, girl.
I'm covered in reminders. This is my reminder.
Right.
I got
Shine. I
signs
love that.
on my palm because I tend to be a hermit. I tend
Okay.
to just want to like stay at home and read a book.
Yeah.
And, and I know that that's not my destiny in this life. And like coming out, like the me from 2009 that got this tattoo would never be able to conceptualize like being on a podcast like this. Right.
I love that growth. I love it.
Yeah. I tattoo on myself aside from this one on my shoulder. That's my kitten.
Aww.
I generally end up tattooing on myself the energy that I am like looking to kind of like embody next.
Mm.
And it's almost like I imprint it on me, which is why waking up that morning and being like, is hope really the energy that I want to like live into and like embody within myself moving forward? And so hope is great.
Yeah.
There are things that I hope about. But also, I always show what is one thing I can do today to take that step towards the things that I want in my life.
Right. I no, and I agree. I mean, I say that because I just wish some things would just magically happen, right? Because I'm like, oh, do I want to go through it again? But in the
They can.
reality, I also said to you before we went live that I'm craving a group of women entrepreneurs that really, it's not just a networking, right? Networking is just showing up and not really giving it anything. I mean,
Yeah.
a little bit. You give a little bit of yourself, right? But look, I'm craving something that is deeper, where like there are transformational relationships that are happening. And it is that community, like a small, very precise community that you're lifting each other up. And I really believe like that's so important. And why a part of why you need community is just because sometimes I need a kick in my butt, right? Sometimes I need somebody to like just call me out on something I'm doing.
Oh, I know. We're both like, we are both our best friends and our worst enemies.
Yes. Yes, absolutely we are. So, if there is a listener right now listening and she's looking for community, what could she do? Where would you tell her to go?
Well, first off, I know Deanna has a community, so that's a great place to go. And second, I also have an online community with an app. The app is called Big Goal Energy. So you're welcome to either go on Android or iOS and open up your app store, type in Big Goal Energy. You can also go to briseeley.com/community. There is a desktop version of the app as well. So you can hop into my website and check it out there. But if you are, an ambitious individual that's looking for other ambitious individuals who get it, you're kind of over the hustle and you're ready for some resources, tools, conversations, Big Goal Energy is a great app. We are brand new. So we are growing and we are building and we are evolving. We're not perfect by any means right now, but we're working on it. So, those are two great communities to start with. And then from there, who knows who you'll meet. That like one of my clients also runs an amazing community that might be aligned with you and she's in the app. Or the spider web of humans is incredible, and the resources and connections that can be made through communities like the ones that Deanna and I both run, they're great places to start.
I'm going to have the links to your community in the podcast. So if you're listening right now and you want to connect with Bri in her community, just go to the notes below and all those links are right there so that you can join her community and download the app and connect with Bri. But outside of your community, how can my listeners connect with you?
You can look me up pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Google, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, under my name, Bri Seeley. I am luckily not the only person with this name, but the only one who has an internet presence with this name. So you will find me literally everywhere if you search Bri Seeley.
Perfect. Bri, thank you again for coming on today. This was such a great conversation. There were so many different nuggets that you shared that I am just like, this is so good. This is so good. So thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Bye.